Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 244 of the Mo Money Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Moorhouse. Welcome back to my final episode of season 10 of the show. Also, as I mentioned yesterday, we have surpassed 5 years of the Mo Money Podcast. I know there's lots of you who have been listening since the beginning, and oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thinking back to some of those OG episodes, I kind of shudder. I'm like, wow, I was really green. I really did not know what I was doing. And I think I've improved. I've definitely honed my craft quite a bit since then. So thanks for sticking along for the ride. Or if you're new to the show, thanks for finding me. And I've been getting a lot of amazing messages lately of people who've just discovered this podcast. And that makes me so happy because that's why I'm still around. And I'm not going to just like, I think I've said everything. It's like, no, because new people will discover it. And hopefully this will, all the interviews I do, all the shows that I do will help people listening in one way. And, in terms of, improving their financial literacy or answering some questions that they didn't understand, and just overall help people, because that is the whole point of this show. I just want to help people in my small little way in this world. And this has anything to do with anything, but today is my birthday. So that's something. What am I doing today? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm going to go to Dairy Queen and get myself an ice cream cake because yes, I'm turning 34, but yes, I also want an ice cream cake. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And otherwise, we're still in a state of emergency here in Ontario. So I'm going to be just, staying at home, maybe reading a book, try not to work as much. I'm sure if you're listening and you've had a birthday during this pandemic, you know how it is. It kind of sucks. It is what it is. But anyways, that's not what the episode is about. I just wanted to tell you because I just want to tell somebody. Someone's got to know it's my birthday, right? I want to make this episode not about me whatsoever. I want to address what's going on in the world with all of the protests with Black Lives Matter and kind of share where my stance is, which is obviously I support Black Lives Matter. Obviously, I support the protests. Obviously, I believe we need some change and we need to uplift and support people of color, and we need to let their voices be heard. And so I want to not so much talk again about me, because this is not about me. This is so not about me. As a white woman, it's been everything's kind of about me, right? So that is not what this episode is about. I really want to talk about how we can help the Black community, how we can help people of color by kind of pointing to some amazing resources and also highlighting some amazing voices in the financial space, both in Canada and the US, that I don't think get enough attention, quite honestly. So that's what I want to focus on. I also want to address, in case you do follow me on Instagram, or I don't think I really talked about it on Instagram, but on my Twitter. So I've had this show for 5 years, and I think throughout the 5 years, I have mentioned a particular conference that I've been going to, I think for 6 years, on and off. I don't go every year, but I think I've gone to a total of 4 of these conferences. It is called FinCon. I'm not going to go in depth exactly about what the issue I have with, maybe I will. I just don't want to get sued. Exactly. Essentially, and you can find this on it. You can do a deep dive, find out what's going on my Twitter, and then find some other Twitter threads to find out what's going on. But essentially, it was kind of come to light. Some of the values and actions and behaviors of the founder certainly do not match my own personal values and what I think is okay. And I've been talking to a lot of people in the community. A lot of people are very hurt, angry. A lot of people are conflicted because a lot of us have benefited from going to this conference. I've personally benefited in that I've spoken 3 times at this conference. I didn't get paid, but I still spoke and got that exposure. And I also developed some amazing personal relationships. Like these are relationships, these are friendships that I've had for so long, for many, many years, even before I started going to that conference. These are friends that I hold dear, and I know we're going to be friends for a long time. And so I've personally benefited from going to this conference. And so finding out some things about how other people's experience, most especially the people of color who've gone to the conference, and them not being treated fairly, and they have their own personal stories. I just could not continue to support this conference and attend. I'm not going to be attending. I will never attend again. I don't quite honestly care if the founder does kind of fix the issues. That's on him. That is, his personal journey that he needs to go on. But at the end of the day, I need to make choices that are right for me, and that I only want to spend money and show my public support for organizations and people and events that align with my own personal values. So that is kind of just a little thing on that. In case you stumbled upon my Twitter and you're like, what was that all about? That's kind of what it is about. So I'm probably never going to mention the conference again, even though I know a lot of people that, I will probably have on the show in the future. I've probably met them through this kind of FinCon community. But I just wanted to kind of share that, because if you also find yourself in a situation where you find an organization, a company, an event, people that prior you did, support by, spending money with them, or you had some sort of relationship with them, and it's come to light that, they they don't support Black Lives Matter. They don't support human rights, like basic human rights that we all need to be heard, and we really need to fix this systemic racism. And I'm a Canadian, and I've been seeing a lot of crap online, quite honestly, saying, oh, we don't have a racism problem in Canada. Hi, open your eyes. Of course we do. Of course we do. Of course we do. So that's just, I think we'll probably all have some hard choices to make. But in my mind, this is not the time to just be like, I'll see how things go. I'll see how things play out. No. This is the time to really show where you stand and where you support. And especially when it comes to money, you need to vote with your dollars. You need to show where your values lie in terms of how you spend your money. And so that's one way I'm going to be doing it. Another way is, of course, I'm donating some money to organizations that will help the Black community. I'm going to share some of those resources with you right now, in case you are wondering. Okay, so first, and I'm going to talk about how you can support, if you're Canadian, you want to support Canadian organizations and also American organizations, because I know I follow a lot of people on social media, a lot of other people in the personal finance space. They've been sharing some great resources, but they're all American. And again, we do have a racism issue in Canada, so I want to support Canadian organizations as much as I can. So I'm going to share some of those with you right now. So there are different chapters of Black Lives Matter in Canada. There's the Black Lives Matter Toronto. There's Black Lives Matter Vancouver. Even though Black Lives Matter did start in the US, there are chapters here in Canada. But outside of the Black Lives Matter movement and different chapters there are a lot of other great Black organizations that you can lend your financial support or support in another way to. There's the Black Legal Action Center. This is based out of Ontario. It's a nonprofit community legal clinic that provides free legal services for low or no income Black residents of Ontario. There's Black in BC Community Support Fund for COVID-19. It's a fundraiser for a low barrier emergency micro grant program for Black people in BC who are experiencing financial hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. FYI, because I know I'm going to be sharing a lot of information. You, of course, can find all of this. I'm going to include all these resources in the show notes for this episode, jessicamoorhouse.com/244. Also, what I'm currently sharing right now, this is a list that I found on a great HuffingtonPost.ca article. So I'm just kind of sharing a few of these. There is the Naya Center for the Arts. It's Canada's first Black art center committed to fostering and promoting Black identity and community in Toronto through art, which is awesome. I'll just share a few more. There's a Black Space Winnipeg. It's a grassroots organization that looks to spread perspectives of Afrocentrism and pro-Black conversation. Black Space Winnipeg creates safe spaces for people of color through hosting community events, artist demonstrations, and workshops. There's Black Liberation Collective, which is throughout various universities. So the Black Liberation Collectives are an international movement of students challenging anti-Black racism in post-secondary institutions. And it began in Canada at Ryerson and the University of Toronto in 2015, which is pretty cool. There's also the Black Health Alliance, as a community-led charity looking to reduce the racial disparities in health access and care in Canada, focusing on the broad determinants of health, including racism. And I'll just mention one more, Black Women in Motion. This is an organization based out of Toronto. It supports the advancement of Black women in Toronto through educational tools, economic opportunities, and cultural content. Moreover, there are a few GoFundMe pages that you may want to look into to lend your financial support to. There's one for the Toronto Protester Bail Fund. So this was a fundraiser set up basically in light of the recent protest in Toronto. And they're looking to generate funding to release and support protesters who end up incarcerated. Basically, they don't want to... they want to be able to, if anyone wants to participate in these protests, and I'm sure there's going to be more protests here in Canada because this is not going away anytime soon. They want to make sure that if anyone does get arrested, that they are not left without legal counsel or bail funds or any kind of financial support. So you can look into that. Moreover, there's also a GoFundMe for Justice for Regis. If you haven't already read this in the news, on May 27th, Regis Korchinski Packet, she tragically lost her life. And she was a resident basically of my neighborhood. She lived just a few blocks away from me. So it really kind of hit home for me that this could happen to anybody. It can happen to anywhere. It can happen right in your own neighborhood. And of course, there's still an ongoing investigation of what exactly happened. But part of the big reason why there were the Toronto protests was because they wanted justice for Regis and they wanted an actual real investigation into what happened. So things like this don't happen again. A young Black woman does not lose her life and because of police involvement, basically. So you can look on that. That is also on GoFundMe. There are also a few amazing, what are the Google Docs that people have shared that have a list of different resources they've shared in my Facebook group. So if you're not already in my Facebook group, please join. You can just go to facebook.com/groups/moneylifebalance to get in there. But there's a couple things I posted. I started kind of the conversation by sharing this one link that my husband actually shared with me that he found from a friend. And it's blacklivesmatters.card, but that's CARRD.co. And it's basically a link to a bunch of different links to different resources. So it has resources for if you want to sign a petition, if you want to donate funds, if you want to support the protesters specifically. There's also sections for Canada or Australia specifically. There's a lot of great stuff on that link. So definitely check that out. Again, to reiterate, blacklivesmatters.carrd.co. Again, it links to so many great resources. For instance, it has a full list of, if you want to support directly to the victims' families, it has all the links to, the George Floyd Memorial Fund, Breonna Taylor Fund, Jamie Johnson Fund. The list sadly goes on and on and on because there's quite a few victims. And beyond that, if you want to support the protester specifically, it also has links to different bail funds and protester in need funds. So definitely take a look at all of that. Now, beyond giving financial support, and I also realize we're still in a pandemic, and a lot of us are still feeling the crunch, the financial crunch, and a lot of us don't have the money to donate to a cause right now, but we still want to help in some way. So one way you can do that is by, again, amplifying, promoting, highlighting people of color voices in any way you can. Now, I want to kind of hone in on the financial space, personal finance, because, it's very white. It's very white. Just doing a quick kind of Google search of personal finance content creators, people of color in Canada. I know I did lots of variations of that Google. Honestly, I just had a bunch of different lists of bloggers, content creators that were all pretty much white. And so I reached out to my friend Sandile Shiwansa. I met her a number of years ago. I want to say maybe 3 years ago. She came to one of my library events where I didn't know if anyone would come because if you've ever spoken or been to one of those free library events, sometimes it's packed and sometimes there's 3 people that show up. And she came because I think she listened to my podcast or followed me on social media. And so she came and she was so lovely. And she said she wanted to start a side hustle and do something more in the personal finance space. And cut to now, She is a personal finance journalist and financial wellness mentor. She writes all the time for lowestrates.ca, and she has an amazing, amazing Twitter and Instagram feed. You can follow her at Knows, so Z-A Knows, like Knows, Knows. Anyways, I emailed her. I'm like, hey, do you have any recommendations or a list of people of color in the financial space specific to Canada that you can share with me? And luckily she came through with an amazing list, which just goes to show how there are people of color that are doing amazing things in the personal finance space in Canada. They're just not getting any attention because I couldn't freaking find them when doing some Google searches and searching on Twitter. So trying to rectify that now by giving them some love and sharing them so you can follow them as well. So in no particular order, here are some people that you may want to start following and consuming their content or getting financial help from. There is Cassandra Dissent. I just started following her actually the other day on Twitter. She is amazing. She's a financial wellness engineer. You can follow her on Twitter and Instagram. Cassandra Dissent is how you, I don't know if that's how you pronounce her last name. Sometimes if I don't know how to pronounce things, I just pronounce it like kind of French, like Dissent, but I don't know. Anyways, it's Kassandra. Last name is Dasent. Dissent. Anyways, you can also find her on her website, CassandraDissent.com. Again, I'm going to be listing all of these on the show notes, JessicaMoorhouse.com/244. There is Keisha Blair, who was recently on the podcast, and she came out with a book recently called Holistic Wealth. She also just started her own YouTube channel, so it's under her name, Keisha Blair. So make sure to subscribe and start watching her, videos, and also grab a copy of her book. Another blogger you should definitely check out, though, if you read a lot of personal finance blogs, you've probably already stumbled on his blog. I do all the time. He's always in my search rankings when I'm Googling anything about personal finance. I'm talking about Enoch Omololu. He is the founder of Savvy New Canadians. You can find that at savvynewcanadians.com. He started his blog in November 2016, and he's just been killing it, creating so much helpful content. So make sure to check him out, savvynewcanadians.com. We've also got Vanessa Bowen. She's the founder of Mintworthy. You can find that at mintworthy.co. She is a money and mindset coach, and you can also follow her on Instagram at mintworthyco is where you can find her. We've also got Jackie Porter. She is a CFP, a financial advisor. You can find her at askjackie.ca, and she is on Twitter at askjackieporter, and on Instagram she's I am Jackie Porter, and Jackie is Jackie. I think that's the normal spelling of Jackie. I don't know why I said that. You'd probably figure that out yourself. And Porter is like you'd say it's Porter, Porter. We've also got Nichelle Barley. She's the founder of Money Basics. You can find that at moneybasics.ca, and she's a financial strategist. And you can also follow her on Instagram at Money Basics. We've also got Nicole Simmons. She's a financial literacy advocate. She's a wealth management advisor, insurance broker, and part owner of CPN Financial Services. You can follow her on Instagram at Advisor on the Go. And last but not least, we have Octavia Ramirez. She's the founder and CEO of Paper and Coin, which is a paper magazine and also an online magazine. There's a blog, there's a money coaching service. They do webinars, they have digital resources. They have a bunch of financial content on there. You can follow her specifically on Twitter at Octavia Faith. You can also just go to paperandcoin.com to learn more. And you can follow at Paper and Coin on Twitter and Instagram as well. Now, in terms of the U.S., there are actually a ton of amazing people based in the U.S. that are financial bloggers or speakers, YouTubers, content creators. I found one really great resource that I will link in the show notes. It's from mymoneychronicles.com. There's a list of, 90 plus African-American personal finance bloggers and influencers. A lot. And I'm sure he's updating it all the time. Now, I'm not going to list all 90 people on here because that would take me too long. So make sure to just check out the show notes. I'll have a link to the resource that I mentioned that has the full list of them. But I just kind of want to give some shout outs to a few that are maybe my particular favorites, or, you may want to check them out. For instance, I've got my friend Michelle Jackson. She has been on the show before on this podcast. Her brand is Michelle is Money Hungry. She recently did a a really great blog post on her website, michellesmoneyhungry.com. michellesmoneyhungry.com. It's a candid conversation about race in America, and I highly recommend that you read. She also did a podcast for that specifically, so you can also listen to her. I'd say definitely check that out. There's also His and Her Money, Talat and Ty McNeely. I've had them on the podcast as well. I just love them. I just love these two. They have an amazing YouTube channel and podcast. They're great speakers. I've seen them speak. They're just two of my favorite people, so make sure to check them out. Candace Latham, she was a friend that I made a few years ago when I went to this event called Statement that my friend Stephanie O'Connell started with Emma Patty, which is such a great event all about women empowerment in finance. We all kind of know each other through the financial scape. So she is a full-time entrepreneur and a designer, and she's wonderful. I really enjoy. She also has a YouTube channel. I follow her on Instagram, so you can find her. Candace Latham, she's amazing. Of course, I also have to mention that, My Money Chronicles, who created this amazing list, Jason Butler, he originally started his blog under the name The Butler Journal, then changed it to My Money Chronicles. And I now follow him on Twitter. He's got some great stuff. So you can find him at mymoneychronicles.com or follow him on Twitter at money_chronicle. We've also got Patrice Washington. I remember seeing her speak before, and she was incredible. Her talk was so emotional about how she really turned her life around and, just how personal finance has really impacted her and now how she wants to impact other people. She's a very well-known personal finance expert. She's been on a ton of major shows like The Steve Harvey Show and Dr. Oz, and she has a ton of books. So make sure to check her out, Patrice Washington. There's also someone I've been a huge fan of for years. I've seen her speak. She's huge on social media. She has a huge, huge audience. I'm talking about Tiffany, the Budgetnista Alish. She's an award-winning personal finance educator. You can find her at the Budgetnista. She's been on pretty much all the shows, like all the major TV shows. She's a powerhouse. She has books. She has a huge, amazing, thriving online community where she helps people, empower themselves through personal finance. So definitely check her out. Follow her on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're looking for a few podcasts, these are two that I follow quite a bit. Journey to Launch. Jamila is the creator of this. It's a blog and a podcast. Her podcast is huge. It has a ton of listens. It's called Journey to Launch. Now, if you're looking for other podcasts, there's actually some really great podcasts I've been a fan of for a long time. One that I love, and it's huge now. It's gotten so popular. It's called Journey to Launch. Jamila Sufrant created journeytolaunch.com, and it is a blog. It is also a very popular podcast, as I mentioned, so you can find that at journeytolaunch.com or just find the podcast wherever you're listening this podcast. It will be in that same directory. Another great and very popular podcast is called Popcorn Finance. It's by Chris Browning, and you can find more information about it on popcornfinance.com. I also follow Popcorn Finance on Instagram and really like it. He is an analyst by day, podcaster by night, and not only does he have Popcorn Finance, he also has another podcast called This Is Awkward, which is co-hosted by Allison Bakerly of Inspired Budget. So he's a busy podcaster if he's doing two podcasts. So yeah, he's amazing. Make sure to follow Chris. All right, so there's a ton of others. Of course, I'm going to tell you, just check the show notes. I will have all of them list all these really great handy resources, and then you can start following them on social media, listening to their podcasts, reading their blogs, checking out their YouTube channels, and then you can do the next step, which is not only consume their content, but share their content with your friends, family, your own audience, so more people can know about these amazing content creators, influencers, and experts out there who are doing some amazing, amazing work. And for me, because, unfortunately, I didn't know about all of these amazing people of color who were doing such amazing stuff in the personal finance space. That is my own ignorance. I will completely put my hands up and say that. I'm going to do better as well with this podcast and do better in terms of making sure that I have a very diverse selection of guests. I do try my best because I am an ally. And so I am always very cognizant and I always try to think, I want to make sure it's not just too much much men or too many women. I want to have a good balance. But I also need to do the same and make sure it's not just a bunch of white people, because we need to hear various voices, because everyone has such a different perspective, different background, and can add so much to the conversation when we're talking about money. So I am going to focus more on that for my next season. Of course, hit me up if I've mentioned some people, you're like, yeah, I knew those people. Have you thought about this person? If you know of any other people in this space that I should get to know, that I should have on this show, you let me know. You DM me, you email me, jessica@jessicamoorhouse.com. Let me know. Because again, I want to do what I can and to promote these voices and these stories and these amazing people on my own platform, which I can do. So let me know. But I'm, of course, going to be spending the summer doing a ton of research and hitting up some of these people that I mentioned on the show that haven't been on that I mentioned on this episode, but haven't had on the show. I don't know why. So I'm excited for that coming up. And I guess I'm going to probably start season 11 of this podcast. Oh, goodness. Maybe late August, maybe September. Really depends. We'll have to see. I have no idea what is going to happen in the next few months. So it's very difficult. And I'm sure you understand too, because you're living your life too. It is so hard to plan for the future, even if it's just a few months away, with everything going on, because it does kind of seem like the world is collapsing. Personally, because I am an optimistic person, I hope that what's going on right now is basically a tipping point and we will start to see some big change. Personally, I know we still have a long way to go when it comes to the Me Too movement, but I feel like all that terrible stuff that happened, I have seen some positive change. We still have a lot more to do, but we did see some positive change that came out of it, which is great. So I'm hoping this is the same thing. This is a tipping point, and progress will happen. Big change will happen, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take decades and generations, let's be honest. But I'm hoping this is the first real big thing that's going to make some big shifts in this world. And I'm looking at as a positive, hopefully. But I know there's also a lot of people struggling and hurting, and this is a really difficult time. So I also want to be sensitive to that. So that is it for me, really. That's all I kind of wanted to share. I wanted to kind of share some resources and some amazing people that we can all, start taking a look at what they're saying and their content and amplifying them, because they deserve it. And we need more diverse people in this space, especially when it comes to personal finance specifically. As someone who is a woman, I've really appreciated that there are more people from different backgrounds participating and starting blogs and starting podcasts and YouTube channels, because we want to be more inclusive. It's not fun just seeing the same type of people creating the same type of content. There's space for everybody, and we need to support everybody. So anyways, I hope this episode has been helpful, informative. And although I'm going to be, taking a little bit of a break from the podcast, as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I'll probably pop back in and do a few other episodes, especially just as things change with what's going on with, the whole Black Lives Matter movement and all the protests, as the pandemic evolves. As things evolve in our world, I'll probably want to do an episode to kind of talk about it, address it, and share some information that might be helpful. So it's not, goodbye for several months. It's probably just like, see you a little bit later. Just need a little bit of a break. But to stay in touch, make sure to first get onto my email list, jessicamoorhouse.com/subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. It's JESSI_Moorhouse. You can also follow the Mo Money Podcast specifically on Twitter at Mo Money Podcast. I think I've sent out one tweet because I forgot I made the account. I'll be honest. Forgot I made it like several years ago. So I am going to be actually spending the summer to actually just tweet out past episodes. So, and other information about the podcast. I am also on Instagram at Jessica I. Moorhouse. And I also created an Instagram for the Mo Money Podcast specifically at Mo Money Podcast. So make sure to follow that. And of course, I'm going to be creating more content on my website, jessicamoorhouse.com, and more videos on my YouTube channel just under my name. Jessica Moorhouse. Also, if you just want to listen to my episodes on YouTube, because I know a lot of other people do, I have a specific YouTube channel that has all of the episodes. I'm no longer going to be publishing Mo Money podcast episodes on my personal or my like Jessica Moorhouse YouTube channel. I'm just going to leave that just for straight up videos, not episodes. So I have a specific, if you just like Google Mo Money podcast in YouTube, you will find the specific YouTube channel where it has all of those podcasts. Okay, I think we're good. Did we cover everything? I think we covered everything. So again, I want to say thanks so much for listening to this, I'd say important episode. Thanks so much for supporting the Mo Money podcast, especially all these 5 years. I really, really appreciate it. I want you all to stay safe. I want you all to really think about how can you make the world a better place? How can you support the people we need to support, people of color, especially during this time, with either your actions, with your time, with your social media to amplify, or your dollars. What can you do right now? Because if we all do something, it will have a major, major impact on the world. So I just want to kind of leave it there on hopefully a positive note. Thanks again for listening. I will check you back here later when, I don't know. I'm sure I'll see you soon during the summer. But until then, have a good rest of your day, rest of the week, rest of the summer.